A basic introduction for our speakers. Don and Jan Stover are co-editors and publishers of a monthly magazine, the Owl Creek Gazette, which of course you will find right here, and co-hosts of a weekly podcast called Creekside with Don and Jan. The magazine and the podcast incorporate the libertarian philosophy and the practices of self-reliance, independence, out of the box, off the grid, and non-aggression. Both Don and Jan have worked with the Libertarian Party of Illinois at the state level, Don serving as the party newsletter editor and Jan serving as the LP Illinois Executive Director. Each has played a role in the planning of a number of state conventions as well. The couple are also instrumental in the founding of the Metro East Libertarian Chapter, serving chapter officers, eventually becoming active in the Bonn Fayette County Libertarian Chapter, and currently serving as BFCL officers, the Bonn County Libertarian Chapter officers. The title of the workshop is, as you see up there, Communicating Libertarianism to the Self-Reliant Movement. Don and Jan will be sharing their editorial, writing, and interviewing experiences which address techniques of communicating libertarianism to the self-reliant movement.
We should have read
that. Techniques include reclaiming the language, finding common ground, building coalitions, using social media, planning local and regional events, and more.
We did some of that.
Please welcome Don and Jan.
Well, thanks for having us and looking out the crowd, see so many faces that I have known for years, and it's good to be here. Lupe contacted us, oh gosh, months and months ago, and said, can you guys do something with the presentation form, speaker form, something for the upcoming convention? And I said yes without asking Don. I thought that was a safer bet. So,
it was.
And so Lupe and I were talking back and forth what would be the best way to talk about what we currently do, and hence the title, Communicating Libertarianism to the Self-Reliant Movement. So Don, if you want to take it away.
Well, it all happened 4 years ago. In 2011, I ran for city council and just had the pants beat off me because I did that. I'm a libertarian, and you need to vote for me because I'm a libertarian. In people's faces, and it just, I got fourth place in a five-man race. So as part of my campaign, I made a promise that we would start a business, and we did. And ultimately, it wound up being two businesses too. But so Don's Uniques and Repairs was born right after that loss, that sound thrashing. In April of 2015, Jess Adam, he ran for city council as a libertarian and was elected. Now, let's put all the pieces together between that, because what we did, I think, kind of helped massage the language. Massage, message, same thing. So that's the story of the 4 years between that you need to hear.
And as Don mentioned, he started Don's Uniques and Repairs, and the idea behind that was, besides showing all the city councilmen that sit on city council that don't own businesses what real economic development is about, we decided to go ahead and see what else we could do. And people were coming into his shop saying, you know, this is so great because we don't want things to go in the landfill, and you can repair my great-grandmother's clock, and you know, things that have sat in the attic, in the garage, and been just going to waste or not appreciated. And I said to Don, you know, there's so much talk of self-reliance and independence and getting back to the idea of taking care of things we own and each other and ourselves that we should.
Started a new publication.
That's right, and we started the Owl Creek Gazette. Now, how that began was, besides Don's business, we have a piece of property that sits by Owl Creek. And so as we were talking about this, we were down there, it was a beautiful night, we were reading Thoreau. It was just perfect, you know. We said, okay, let's come up, let's go ahead and do this, because we had publishing business before with my mom.
And by the way, there's nothing hotter than reading Thoreau in an evening. You know,
We
Kinda
remember
sultry
that
night.
evening well.
I think it would depend on the girl, actually.
Well, yeah.
Well, it seemed to work for Dawn, so we'll just go with that.
Let's just not throw it all away.
So, anyway, we toyed a minute with the idea of calling it the Libertarian Gazette because that's the principles we believe, we've practiced, we've preached for so long. And then I remembered something my mom had said. My parents had been in business for years too, and Mom said, I can sell anybody a good product, but I gotta get them in the door. Well, we knew Libertarian Gazette wouldn't get them in the door. Now, for us, we'd be all over that, but how is the average person going to say, I want to pick up this magazine and why I've never heard of this? Some people would just put down a paper that identified itself so clearly with one philosophy or another, or they wouldn't understand it, or they've heard a bunch of negative things about libertarianism. So Owl Creek is a kind of a landmark in our community, and so we thought, okay, that's perfect, and all the charm that comes with that nature and living a more peaceful, calm life. So we started the Owl Creek Gazette, and then we decided that we needed to really identify how we wanted to speak to people, and this goes to the communicating idea in general. We live in a county that is predominantly Democrat. So right there, we knew that we had to say things in a different way if we wanted read and heard. We also live in a county that is big on farming and modern farming, and we're wanting to present all kinds of alternatives in farming, less chemicals, more organic, and just kind of think outside the box in that rather than an agribusiness setting. So we knew that would be, we'd be running up against that too. We also wanted to present ideas in health and healing, and we live in a community that the hospital is a large employer, so that's something to be aware of too. And in our setting, there for years the newspaper, the hospital, and then the community faith-based college, I shouldn't say community college, it's a private college in the community. Yes, and it has a lot of impact, and those three were kind of like major players in whatever message got out into the community. So we also knew that we wanted to tackle lifestyle choices, and we wanted to present options in faith and spiritual paths. So we had to really watch how we said everything. So keeping that in mind, we also made a commitment to ourselves that we would not ever change what we had to say to please an advertiser. And we've had an experience where that would have been suggested that we do, and we've lost a couple. But I think
we lost some advertisers over what we put in the magazine,
but we've gained some.
Yeah,
And
I would say in a room full of guys, no, didn't even.
Well, our budget might have suggested that, but our principals wouldn't let us take it, I'll say that. So, and a real quick example before we move on, we had done a peace vigil every month for 2 years, the last Sunday of every month. And we'd gone out there, rain, shine, snow. We've got pictures of us posted on Facebook. It's snowing. We got a little sign, coexist peacefully. It's just Dawn and I. Then we've got when it's 100 degrees and we're in our little camper there. We've got the same sign. But over time, we would have people come and go, and it was a good way to communicate with both spectrums, both sides of the audience we were trying to reach. Well, Cindy Sheehan, who, by the way, you all know is not a libertarian, was having her tour to peace, and she was going to be in St. Louis 2 days before our regular monthly peace vigil. So I thought, what the heck, I'll just contact her. And if you don't know Cindy Sheehan, she was called, the Peace Mom. She stood up even though her...
She camped out in front of George Bush's estate in Texas.
Yes, and so she's, but she's
Property.
way left almost till she comes back around. And we knew that we weren't going to agree with a lot of things, but on this one issue of coming together to stop the war, to be outspoken about that, we thought it was perfect time to bring her in if she would consider coming. She did. We had a great turnout. We had like 30-some people, which probably shows more people are interested in meeting someone famous than is standing out there every month for peace. But it's a good connection with people.
But don't forget the disconnect that we made, that it was Memorial Day weekend.
Oh yes, and we had a gentleman email us and said, this is the most horrendous thing you could have ever done to invite this they didn't call him anti-war, but anti-military woman on Memorial Day to come here, and I'm calling all your advertisers. I'm going to tell them never to advertise with you again. I'm going to tell everybody no not to shop with you. So I call all our advertisers and tell them to look for this may happen. And, you know, it was so wonderful because the advertisers said, no problem, we'll talk to her, we'll advertise with you, you have a right to say everything you want to say. If someone doesn't like it, they can put the publication down. I mean, most of our advertisers really get it and are where we are.
Yeah.
So, but one guy said, bring it on. Just have him bring it on.
Call.
So that made us feel good. And in spite of that, you know, you do think, how well do we address this? And we handled it okay. And by the way, he never called a single advertiser, so it was a wasted threat. But yeah. So anyway, that's the last one.
Defining the philosophy.
Oh, in defining the philosophy, we sat down and said, how are we going to explain what we believe in a few, like 5 or 6 points that we can refer back to? And so, Don, if you want to share those.
Yeah. Well, I'll put my glasses on so I can read it
That'll
off the
work.
screen. Well, first off, we like people who are independent, right? So, and it's obvious that the definition of independent is not controlled by others, you're self-governing, not affiliated with a larger controlling unit, not requiring or relying on something else, not contingent upon, not bound by, or not committed to a political party, except for us. And showing desire for freedom. Off the grid. What is off the grid? It's not connected to community or to utilities. It's able to produce one's own electricity and water supply. An antidote to being consistently connected to electronic communications. God, if some of us had to drop our telephone, we'd have little strokes, I'm sure. Creating downtime to recharge before returning to one's daily routine. What is it to be out of the box? Creative thinking and problem solving, not constrained by conventional barriers. Looking at things in a novel way, free to explore uncommon ideas and attitudes and endeavors. And to be self-reliant is reliance on our own capabilities, judgment and our resources, having confidence and exercise in one's own powers, and being free from external control. This is libertarianism, you know, in a nutshell. And to be voluntarist, okay, the practice of supporting oneself, one's family, one's neighborhood, one's community, through voluntary associations, not through you have to do it associations, but through voluntary associations with both economic and social, endeavors. The principle of supporting churches and schools and other institutions and organizations by voluntary contributions rather than state funds. And we're kind of kitschy too.
You gotta have fun with it all. So.
Yeah, because if we don't have fun, we're dead. We are.
And it frees us up from some of the harder core libertarian approaches we might have taken. If we can remember, it's fun to be kitschy in the process. So, and where we live in a community of 7,000. Actually, there's 5,000. There's 2,000 in prison. And,
Yeah.
the city likes to claim the 2,000 because it gets some more grant money. So if our numbers are up.
These weren't locals, were they?
No.
Well, maybe a few, but for the most of them, they're imports.
But most of them are in their own drug offenses. It's a
Yeah,
federal
of course.
prison.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
So then we had to say to ourselves, okay, we talk about self-reliance, and that's kind of a buzzword now. Self-reliance, self-sufficient, sustainable, back to the land kind of thing are all words that are popular now. But we wanted to know what we thought they meant, and then as we've been in the magazine for the 4 years, they've taken on different connotations and ideas too. We kind of see there are two groups. There's the hardcore preppers, and like we say, they've got 10,000 gallons of water, 100,000 gallons of water in there.
no, just 10,020.
Food for 10 years, and like we say, bunkers to bug out bags. They're ready to go. And then there's the other end of the spectrum, which is advocates for green living, sustainable living, intentional communities, and they're really more alike than they know, which we'll talk about in a minute, but also then everyone in between. And we wanted to make sure that we touched all those, and the idea is to bring them together through some libertarian principles. And so here I said the goal to have libertarianism in the Owl Creek Gazette help bridge the gap through articles that apply and appeal to each end of the spectrum as well as the middle.
So, yeah. How do we skip a slide? Gotta go back.
Nope, that's good. We're
No, we
there.
gotta go back.
I think that's all
There
right.
it is.
Oh, excuse me, what do I know?
Prepared versus sustainable. I helped put it together, so I remember. There's you got preppers out there, and you got the green people, and you got, well, the sustainables, I guess is the way to describe them. And sometimes both of them don't know that they're heading for the same goal, right? And we decided that we would pick and choose these 6 or 7 items here: survival necessities, food and shelter, remedial medical care and preparedness, security and self-defense, being off the grid, good communications, alternative power. And then we realized that the differences between these two were, one was utilizing self-education, self-reliance, and self-preservation in order to achieve those goals, and that the sustainable folks are utilizing education, community systems, and legislation. So our goal with the Owl Creek Gazette is to bring them together under one roof, is to make everybody realize that if we paint these stories that we put out with a libertarian brush, they're going to get it. They're going to get the connection. They're going to make that connection easier than pounding it in their heads. You know, read my paper. Won't work. But hey, you know, if government didn't have any hand in that, it'd be a better deal, don't you think? We wouldn't all have to pay for that idiot doing what he's doing.
Yes.
And people go, oh yeah.
And we never fail to mention at the end of an article, we may have a glowing aspect of, this was really fun, and this was really nice, and isn't this cool, and don't you wish you all would do this? And by the way, if the government hadn't been involved, wouldn't it have been better? So we never miss that opportunity. And it's woven through everything. And Kent can verify that. You've got the magazine for years, and he's a regular subscriber. And so when you read that, and you'll find we'll mention our other articles, you see that we do that, and it's a perfect opportunity because they're not suspecting anything, and we lend that nice surprise, and hopefully they'll get it at the end.
Yeah. Well, we even know Eustace Conway. He's a pretty cool dude, and he's one of those guys that he fought his county government tooth and nail over whether or not the county was going to come in and dictate how he could build a log cabin and not build building codes. He says, well, it's better than code. Well, the lumber's not stamped. He said, nobody stamps the lumber. Would you rather have a 16-inch diameter tree holding up your house or this 2x4? And that kind of common sense is lost on people who only know the chapter and verse of the local codes. So
Who won?
local codes are cool.
He won.
Yeah,
Eustace
won. He won. Local codes are cool, but they have a limit, and they are very limited. So
I don't think local codes are cool, by the way.
well, local codes can be. It's supposedly a starting point, and most of the times it winds up just being a tool.
Bureaucrats can't see beyond it.
Right. Bureaucrats can't see beyond their own self-importance. But we put out articles on beekeeping, a year at Piney Woods Ranch down there with Val and Deb.
And for folks who remember, Val was state chair and Deb was the treasurer for years, and when we were involved in the party heavily, they were too. They made a commitment to take their ideas of getting away from government intervention and all the problems that accompany that, and move down to Texas and start their own ranch and, you know, live off the land and grow their business. The sovereign state of Texas, nonetheless. And so when we sat down to figure out who we would like to write for us, we wanted people who already agreed with our philosophy. And because then when they're talking about slop and hogs, they're also talking about libertarianism in the same breath. So go ahead, I just wanted to say that's who Piney Woods Ranch was.
We lived for a year with Jess in a camper, a tiny camper. And you never even felt us there, did you?
No.
The Roots of Indian Images was a 7 or 8 magazine long piece that came from 2 people in Greenville. Now, admittedly, they are primarily Republican, but they work their backsides off making costumes. They make costumes for first-run movies like Dances with Wolves. They made costumes for Bulldoggo. You name a Western movie in the United States that these people haven't had their hands in, well, you can't do it. They've had their hands in everything that's come across the screen in the last 20 years.
Well, the nice part about their business and how it ended up in the magazine, no one had ever asked them to tell their story. No newspaper, no anyone. And we said, this is wonderful because you started from nothing, just your, the love and desire to spread this kind of culture, the Native American culture, and bam, they had a small business and it grew and it grew and grew, and they've done really well. So that's another thing we promote in Self-Reliance is also small business ownership. We're all about the mom and pop shop.
One of Jan's best friends is a writer. She wrote a year at Roby Creek, and that was her libertarian slam on getting out, getting into the environment and living off the land as best they could. Sunshine and bugs. That's what you raise chickens with, is sunshine and bugs. and an occasion,
Contrary to what Tyson may tell you.
yeah, contrary to what Tyson may tell you. Road School America. Stick your hand up. There you go. Road School America.
And that's another article. Krista took her family on the road for an entire year, and we followed them in the Owl Creek Gazette. And it's beautiful because there's homeschooling runs the gamut of left to right, and we do this for religious reasons. We do this to keep government out of our lives, whatever the case is. So we were able to bring a whole lot of readership, and of course Krista's a libertarian, so
she
again,
wrote very well in
yeah.
the libertarian slant. Turtle Island Preserve, I already touched on that.
Which is
Roxanne
used as
Bear,
landmark.
yeah, Roxanne Bear gave us Where Will It Stop? We did the Peace Vigils. We have a second Saturday series that we did at the store. We would, every other Saturday, every second Saturday of the month, we would have a speaker come in and just sit down and do their thing. We had Elizabeth Gambus, but this was with her experience with dancing,
Right.
Dancing Rabbit Eco Village.
But the point of the second Saturday series was to educate people on everything from soap making to herbs to whatever the speaker could address. But of course, we always had the advocates of self-government's world's smallest political quiz there too. So, there was
We're just
always
not beating
that.
them over the head with it
Yeah.
in the process. We had a Taste of History dinner. If you know Chef Walter Stave, a German guy that would go through American colonial homes and cook on their hearths in traditional fashion, cast iron pots and traditional utensils. Made some wonderful meals. Jess and I made some beef stew.
Pumpkin chowder.
Pumpkin,
Oh,
yeah,
the
the
pumpkin
beef
chowder.
stew. I've never made a beef stew like this. This was tremendous. It was made only with lime and onions and beef and carrots. No water, and it turned down into this amalgamation. It was transmogrified.
Can we quote you on that if
You
we can say it?
You can quote me on
Wow.
that. It was
Well,
damn good.
Yeah, and again then, people come to the event and they have this wonderful meal and Jess sings songs and of the Revolutionary War era, and we just had a great time,
We just
but,
didn't beat anybody over the head
right,
with
but it
libertarianism.
always is that opportunity then to quote Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin. So if you're taking away from any of this, we hope that, that might resonate with you. What can we do that is appealing to the masses and still gives us a forum or a venue that we can let them know how we feel about something? And most people actually agree more than they don't, especially over a good beef stew.
You bet. So, we did have some direct at you libertarian articles. Who Owns You? The Apron Revolution, Passionate Communication, Peace Vigils, and the Peacekeeper in each of us. What we learned and what we didn't learn in civics class. Top 10 things you can do to take back America. Davy Crockett, More Than King of the Wild Frontier, Libertarian Party. We published the entire damn Libertarian Party platform in our magazine.
Well, everyone, people would come in and they'd say, I don't know, what does libertarianism mean? So we give our, non-aggression principle speech. We quote Michael Badnarik a few times here and there, and then we say, well, you can just go online and read the whole platform. Well, I don't know, where is it?
You get tired of being called a dope-smoking baby killer.
Yeah, I've never been called that, but maybe behind my back, I don't know. But the nice part was, and now we can just say, if you want to know the platform and for whatever reason you don't want to Google it, here you go, folks, the whole platform. And we did have people write us back and say, take the time to say, I've read the platform, I agree with it more than I thought. You know, so that's a beautiful thing to actually hear, especially when they take the time to email you or write you a letter.
Yeah. So,
Well, and I want to say too, Crystal has written for us 6 articles.
I think this was 7.
7, okay. And she's done a great job of telling stories. Well, it could be a children's book, but anyone can benefit from it, and especially homeschooling moms will know that we learned a heck of a lot teaching our kids as we read their books to them. So in this issue,
you filled in a heck of a lot of stuff that needed to be repaired too.
Right. So, but Crystal has a really good article. It even has a gnome, and now she's got me all about gnomes. I've got owl collections. Who knows? I may go gnomes and owls this time. But do pick up. All of these issues will give you an idea of what we do, and everything is online as well, too.
This is your slide.
Okie dokie. Too bad I don't have that in front of me. I hate to turn my back to people. One thing we decided to do, I decided this a long time ago. I know there's closeted libertarians out there all over the place, and we would decide to just go ahead and say, as normal as I got to go to the grocery store, I got to pick up my kids from school. Of course, if you're homeschooling, you don't have to do that, but got to pick up my kids, and I'm going to go to my libertarian chapter meeting. And if you present it just as normal as anything else, pretty soon it becomes that normal in conversation. So we've adapted, adopted that, and at the same time, like I say, we also make sure we have plenty of other things to lead them into that philosophy. But we have folks come into our shop all the time and want to talk politics. And this is a little bit off that. Before we close, I wanted to say this. You know, I haven't been around a high school setting in a long time, but we have a lot of young kids now that are coming into our shop. They're 16, 17, 18. And I swear they're teaching them socialism, and I swear they're teaching them anti-capitalist viewpoints. And they all walk in, and they're sweet, they're nice, they're enthusiastic. They love all Don's old stuff that's in the shop. They want to know how the record player worked and the camera worked, and so it's really great to see that. They love the magazine, they care about the environment. They're on the right path, except, you know, school has them going this way. So they come in and they hate, the one thing they all tell us is they hate capitalist and capitalism. And so Jess's shop, by the way, is right next door to us. And they usually have a cup of Jess's coffee in their hand. And I'll say, you hate capitalism? Well, I don't understand. Didn't you just come from Jess's shop and buy your coffee? Well, yeah. Didn't you just come in and get a free magazine that's sponsored by our advertisers who pay us money for that? Well, yeah, I like the magazine.
Did you check your mail on your cell phone?
Did you check? Exactly. Did you go up to the store? Not the store, but the show last night? Did you take your date out to dinner? Well, yeah. Well, honey, that's capitalism. And they don't even begin to realize that, or they didn't before they walked in the store. It's amazing how shocked they are by what I just said, and that should be so obvious. So that's one thing we have the benefit of seeing that younger generation coming up with concerns that are in keeping with our magazine, but they haven't been directed in the right way for whatever reason, so we're happy to direct.
Yeah. So, what do you do?
Go ahead and do the adopt, if you
You
would.
adopt a kind approach, a subtle approach, a dedicated approach, and a consistent approach, and the sacred non-aggression principle. It'll reap opportunities for connections that you're otherwise going to lose.
Well, I want to take a minute to elaborate on that too.
Yeah.
So, since we had the magazine, we've been able to connect up with a lot of people, as we've been saying, but we've had the benefit, since we talk about other things, we were invited for 2 years. Every month, we're on the Greenville College radio program. We would come on and just open up the magazine. We'd go through every page on the magazine and talk about it. So the college kids had the opportunity to hear us speak, if they tuned in, which we hope they did. But at least we were there. We've come to the Greenville radio station, and since we've brought people in like Eustace Conway, who Don mentioned, but was really famous because he was on the Mountain Men television show, and a lot of things that Turtle Island Preserve has come into its own. So we brought those people to the community. Cindy Sheehan, I'm trying to think, the chef, last time we brought in Father Dom,
Oh,
Father Dom, the
yeah.
bread maker. And so we get a chance then to go promote that through advertising, and then also through just, the like current events that's happening in the community. That gives us a perfect opportunity to talk about our publication and what we do and why we do it. then Don got a call from a lady who writes for the Belleville News-Democrat, which is a pretty good-sized newspaper in our area. And she said, I've got this guy that comes in, and he's come in 3 times, and he says, you got to go interview that guy in Greenville. He can fix anything. And they said, well, normally we don't come out that far to Greenville, but this guy won't leave us alone, and we don't even know who the guy is. They gave us his name, so you probably fixed something for him.
Maybe.
So the lady comes out, interviews us, spends 2.5 hours at our shop, takes pictures, does a wonderful interview on Don and what he can do for repairing, and then also interviews me some and talks about the Owl Creek Gazette and our podcast. And we got to talk about libertarianism. Well, the word libertarianism probably isn't in the Belleville News-Democrat very often. So it's nice to see that.
Only whenever they're talking about dope smoking baby.
Maybe so. Well, you shed a new light, Don.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of things that by being kind and subtle and dedicated and consistent, we've been able to have people feel more comfortable coming in, asking us questions, and sharing our message before they hardly realize they've done it, which is great.
You want me to try to do a Jimmy Stewart?
If you can.
So, Jan and I were watching something the other day. I think it come across on the Facebook feed that it just brought this to the forefront.
I had posted it.
Oh,
why
you
it came
did post it.
across.
Oh, it was your fault. Years ago, my mother used to say to me, she'd say, in this world, Elwood, you must be, she always called me Elwood, in this world, Elwood, you must be oh so smart or oh so pleasant. Well, for years I was smart. I recommend pleasant. You may quote me.
And we did. And I said, I was talking to my brother Jeff, and I was saying we were going to use this quote, and I said, well, I would say he's smart for choosing pleasant. So the best of both worlds there.
Yes, great martinis.
He did.
Oh,
And that was from the movie Harvey, if you don't know. I mean, we forget sometimes, you know, that not everybody watches the same black and white movies we do.
Well, and his friend McDonald was spiffed.
But the whole movie's great. So if you haven't ever seen Harvey, watch
One
it.
more thing from our friend, live small, love big, and vote libertarian.
That's straight out of Jess Adams. And that's really all that's all we got, folks. But if you've got any questions about the magazine, oh, one thing we didn't mention, we do a Creekside with Don and Jan podcast.
Show of hands, who's heard us?
And who
Look at
who listens every week? We do. And we started that because the magazine was, you know, it's a monthly publication, and there's so much that happens in that month that we cannot cover. So we wanted to connect up with our readers in a more timely fashion, or elaborate on something, or bring our writers in to actually be on the air with us. And I guess we've had Jess and Krista and Crystal. I think that's all in here, isn't it? But we've done 130 shows. And
70 hours.
70 hours. You can do a
Plus.
marathon anytime you want. It's owlcreekradio.podomatic.com. And it shows what we do in the publication too. We have every week we don't hit libertarianism hard. We will have, sometimes we talk about, you know, the Greenville's bicentennial 200th celebrations coming up, and it's just something as simple as that, or someone is a musician. But we also have had, gosh, I'm trying to think some of the libertarians. Well, Julie Fox was interviewed on our show, and Sharon Hansen, and it was nice to hear Julie Fox she said, Jan, you're really doing something right down there, because I checked the amount of libertarian votes I got when I ran for controller, and you guys in Bond County gave me more votes than I got in my own county. So she said, I'm saying something's working down there. And we're happy to claim just a little bit of responsibility for that. So anyway, there's magazines up here, and you're welcome to questions or whatever.